Hello YouTubers, this is your friendly neighborhood Theophage.
So recently I was having a discussion in private messages with Youtuber Sweet92Sue about the existence of God. What prompted the discussion was her comment on one of my videos. The video itself was a response to a video from YouTuber Rational Roundtable on objective morality. Her comment was about the necessity of suffering and how, if it leads to a greater good, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. I, of course, came back with the argument that an omnipotent God should be able to bring about the greater good without suffering, and that a perfectly good God would necessarily want to bring about the greater good without suffering. But this video isn't really about that. One major topic which came up during this discussion was the role of logic, reason, science, etc. in being able to determine truth, specifically the truth about whether God exists or not. But I suppose it could be expanded to truth in general. Sue didn't seem to think that such things were always appropriate, and that especially for knowing whether God exists, there were other, better methods. At one point she said, "All that said, I firmly believe you cannot begin to take hold of God by logic alone. I'm sorry. I understand the importance of delving into these matters, but as with people, a relationship can't be a head knowledge alone. And also, God is a person. He won't take kindly to being examined like a Rubik's Cube, twisted and turned this way and that to find the answers. At least, that's not the way He wants you to know Him." Now, we never finished this discussion. She said of my attention to detail and logical reasoning that it drives my mind to distraction, and she was sure that her ways of discussing the matter were also driving me crazy. We'd already agreed that if either of us failed to find the discussion interesting or productive, that we would simply break it off there, and she said she'd had enough. What is disappointing about that is that she never really went into much more detail about how we can know truths about God and other things outside of the context of logical reasoning and empirical observation. Nothing we could use to compare and contrast to find out which is better. I'm sure she'd say that I simply wouldn't understand if she did, nor would I probably accept the results anyway. Perhaps she's right, but then again, isn't that the kind of response one would expect if someone really didn't have a better way of discerning the truth, but was simply making excuses? It is one thing to appeal to feelings and intuition on these matters, but these things are hopelessly subjective. They tell us more about the person doing the feeling than about the world around us. In matters of what is real about the world outside our heads, feeling and intuition can't even begin to hold a candle to the success of logic and science. If feelings and intuition really did work as well as people like Sue claim that they do for knowing the truth, why would we even bother with rigorous science or long, boring logical proofs? I believe that logic, reason, and empirical observation really can tell us true facts about the world around us. I also believe that it is true that if God exists, we should be able to tell by these methods that He exists. God's existence is a fact about the world around us. A world where God exists, it stands to reason, ought to be noticeably different from a world where He doesn't. This is true of just about anything. A world where Superman is real would be noticeably different from one where he isn't. A world where spirits are real ought to be noticeably different from one where they aren't. And we're not just talking about belief in these things, mind you. There's a difference between things about the world being true because a belief in something is held, and things about the world being true because of the truth of that belief. On the contrary, if there are no logically or empirically detectable differences between a world where God exists and one where He doesn't, then, to put it simply, there is no difference if God exists. Please feel free to rate this video, add it to your favorites, or just post a comment. I don't like trying to get into substantial discussions in the comment section, however, so if that's what you're looking for, please send me a message through YouTube's private message system, or email me at theophage@geocities.com. I'm also on Skype as Theophage1968. Yes, I'm that old. This is your friendly neighborhood Theophage reminding you, don't just swallow it whole. Make sure you chew it up first.